Welcome to day 7 of our trip to Australia. After 2 days of snorkeling excursions, we decided to skip the jungle train and just hang out in the Cairns for the day. We started off the day at the Bang and Grind for some coffee and some breakfast. We had the homemade granola muesli, and it was quite excellent. After breakfast, we decided to walk around town a little bit and see some of the things we hadn't seen. The first stop was the Easy Mart to check out what kind of interesting snack foods Australia had. After not finding anything at the Easy Mart we were particularly fond of, we decided to wander over to Woolworths to see if we can get some snacks for the road for the next day. They had quite an interesting selection of chips that were all mostly Asian flavors, so we got a couple bags and took them for the road. Melody really wanted to get this tiny little jar of pancake mix because it was cute, but there wasn't really a lot of way to fit it in our luggage. After hanging out in our room for a bit and just not doing much, we decided to go out for lunch and we walked over to the docks. With a fresh seafood restaurant called Prawn Star, we couldn't resist it. We got the jumbo platter, which is actually pretty good for 2 people. Everything was very fresh and tasted excellent. We were very happy with our meal, and it wasn't that terribly expensive considering it was fresh fish. We were surprised to see that the entire bay in front of the Cairns empties out as the tide goes out. Since we had been on the islands for the first 2 days in Cairns, we never got to see it. Still being a little snacky after having seafood with no carbs, I decided we should get some churro time. It was ice cream and some churros. It was pretty good, if a little bit on the sweet side. After spending a few hours in a room doing absolutely nothing and enjoying it, we decided we needed to go out for dinner. We picked a pub a little outside of the main area of town and decided to go for a little bit of an evening walk. Hemingway's brewery was packed and very busy, and there was a bit of a line to get in and then a bit of a line to order food. They warned us when we came in that it would take over 45 minutes to get food, and they were quite dead on. It took almost exactly 45 minutes to get our food. After the brewery, we headed to bed, and then the next morning we woke up early because we were going to start driving to Townsville. We started day 8 with a little walk around town and headed to the farmer's market. We found this French pastry shop on the other end of the farmer's market. We got a box of mini pastries to go, and then we also got a couple of items to eat for breakfast. We wandered through the farmer's market and found a coffee shop and then grabbed some coffee to have with our pastries. The pastries were just okay, and we weren't terribly excited about them. What we did get excited about was the juice from Rusty's Juice Bar, as it was fantastic.
Good morning! Our last day in Cairns.
Yep, we're at the Crystal Brook Flynn Hotel, and we realized we never did a walkthrough of the hotel room. It's been really nice so far. We've got a great view out front, and it's great, a little deck that's great for drying our snorkel gear on. But we'll do a quick little walkthrough here, and then right now we're going to head out to Townsville. Okay, so yeah, we never used the closet or the yoga mat or the fancy robes. But we really like the bathroom. It's pretty fancy, although it does leak into the toilet area a little bit underneath. But other than that, it's really nice. It's got little fancy controls for welcome and relax and stuff, which is actually just more difficult because you have to figure out what button does what light. And then plenty of space for all of our luggage here on the left. We got a TV that does Google Chromecast, so we just watch from our phone stuff. And then we've got a partial view of the bay from our balcony. You can see the pool and a little bit of the bay, not the water's going out, and kind of some trees, and the market rooftop is right next to us as the night market's right there. But that's it, that's the room, and we dried a lot of our snorkel gear out in the patio. It was great. So yeah, we really liked the room, and it was really nice. So we're heading out to Townsville, and hopefully the next room is just as nice. Bye! We had reserved our rental car at the airport, so we grabbed a taxi and headed back to the airport. It was pretty late in the morning when we got started, but that meant the weather was good, and we had a short drive before we stopped for lunch. Since we spent so much time walking around in the morning, we ended up checking out just before the checkout time. This meant we weren't very far down the road when I got hungry for lunch and we needed to stop. We stopped in a little town called Babinda, which actually has some fancy rocks and a waterfall someplace, but we didn't end up going there. We just stopped and got lunch at this little Italian restaurant/bar. It ended up being kind of a small town version of Italian food, and it took a really long time to get our lunch. So it was a little disappointing, but it was the only restaurant in the area, so we couldn't really complain too much. This was our first sighting, but not last, of the little sugarcane trains that are all over the countryside in Australia. We quickly learned that if you weren't excited by the sight of sugarcane, you were going to get pretty bored in a really big hurry on an Australian road trip. This is the kind of view we were hoping we would get when we were driving down the Australian coast. Oceans, parks, trees, stuff like this. But it's mostly just farmland, as you never really get that close to the ocean for the majority of the trip between the Cairns and Sydney. A few hours into a not so exciting drive, we saw this lookout and we were really excited that we could stop and get some scenery. We got to Townsville about 6:30 p.m., a little bit before sunset. We booked a hotel by the water just so we could be closer to the Magnetic Island ferry that we would go on the next day. It was a much fancier hotel than we thought it would be, based on it not being too expensive and having a beautiful view, but it's a pretty small town and it's relatively remote, so there weren't a lot of people there. After watching a beautiful sunset, we decided to go upstairs to the bar for dinner. It was a little bit expensive, but we decided we didn't want to drive around in the dark, as I still wasn't comfortable driving in Australia, being on the wrong side of the road for me. After dinner, we headed to bed a little bit early because we planned on getting up early in the next morning to go to the Billabong Sanctuary, and then in the afternoon going to Magnetic Island.